So, Jelly Roll, I mean, the people here in Northern Ireland, they know your song, Son of a Sinner, but they don't yet know the man behind the song. Let's change that, right? So,
Yes.
you were born and raised in Antioch, Tennessee. And I love the fact that growing up, your two brothers were just constantly playing rap music. Your sister was into rock bands like Metallica and Nirvana. Your father ran a meat company and he sort of flipped between jazz and singer-songwriters like James Taylor and Jim Croce. And your mother, who's, you've been very open about the fact that she's had her battles with, addiction and depression, but she loved classic Motown and outlaw country. I mean, that's a fairly eclectic mix to be surrounded by from day one as the youngest. So it's clearly informed your own sound today, but particularly your live show as well, right?
Oh yeah, dude. It has affected my life in so many ways. Even my live show is somewhere between a rock show, a hip hop show, a country show, and a little bit of a back road tent revival. It's got a little Southern Baptist gospel to it. So yeah, to me, that's kind of what made me who I am as far as especially musically and culturally, the way we dress. It was such a different thing. When you think of music, you don't just think of just the music side, you think of the culture side. I had a sister that wore, black band t-shirts and Jinkos, right? And I had a brother who, wore nothing but, like t-shirts and blue jeans, So it was funny to watch the cultural side of it too.
Yeah. I know you spent some time in prison, but that's where you really honed your rap skills. And I love the fact that you would get the guards to take you to different units within the prison and you would compete in rap battles.
Oh yeah. No, we would go there and it was like it became a thing that happened at night that people were excited about,
Yeah.
It's almost like the guards' way of chicken fighting, except for nobody got hurt.
And your daughter, while you were in prison, your daughter Bailey came into your life. I think she's now 14, but her arriving into the world, that was a major motivating factor for when you got out of jail to then do everything to try and establish some sort of a career within music. And there was a guy called Jazz Howard who would take you to barbershops in different projects within Nashville, and he would lay down like 10 grand on you winning rap battles.
This is true, man. Jazz Howard, Cross Tracks Entertainment. I'll show you something I've never showed anybody. But right here on the inside of my arm, right downward, says Cross Tracks right here.
Uh-huh.
And Jazz Howard, that was his company name, was Cross Tracks.
Wow.
And he gave me a chain. I'll never forget Jazz, man. I still talk to him. We call him Coach. I still talk to Coach. I don't talk to him as much as I should, but I talk to him every few months, just check in on him.
Yeah, yeah. And, there was a point, it was actually for a couple of years, I think, you were essentially living in a van. You were an opening act and you'd be making like 50 to $100 per show and you'd be selling off T-shirts and CDs just to stay afloat. But that's around the same time you met your wife, Bunny.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. I was broke, busted, and fixing to do something disgusting. And we were down in Fremont Street at this little bar called the Las Vegas Country Saloon. And I was playing there. It was like a soft ticket thing,
Yeah.
And I met her by the bar, the old school way. It might as well have been aisle 3 of the grocery store. It was old school.
She is gorgeous. I saw a recent photo you stuck there on social media, man. You must be very proud.
I am, dude. She is beautiful, boy. She is special too. And the best part of her is she is goofy. She is as silly as you'd never believe. She's so intimidating because she's so beautiful looking. And then you get to know her and you're just like, she is silly, man. So she's been the best thing that ever happened to me. She definitely supported me whenever I wasn't financially stable too.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about that transition though, from rap to singing country. Two things. Do you find that it's easier to get across your story and your message in one or the other? And tell me about how significant your label head, is it John Loba, has been in that transition?
John Loba is one of the greatest humans on earth. He is so not afraid of, he is fearless in an industry full of guys who are petrified.
Yeah.
Right. He just lives in his own world over there on Music Row. He just acts like the rules that are supposed to be here don't exist. And that's what initially attracted me to him. Was Loba. Just look at the record label, roster. I say it all the time. It looks like a halfway house. You know, there's a hippie with bell bottoms jeans singing about hearts like trucks and man's oughta knows. There's a black dude that dresses like a pimp. You know, Jimmy Allen's got the most eclectic style I've ever seen. Blanco Brown looks like he's fixing to record a rap album tomorrow. I
Yeah.
love that about him. Designer bags and big watches. Then you look at like Parmalee is like, to me, there's still that rock band that grinded it out in a van together. A bunch of cousins that just love music, you know? And you look at that kind of a label. They got a Mexican that used to be a cop, right? Think about that. It's like I looked at that label and was like, this is for me. This is home. I belong here. You know, this looks like my dinner table at Thanksgiving.
But what do you find with between the rap or the singing? I mean, is there a difference? Obviously, there's more emotion in your voice when you're singing, but you can get more words in when you're rapping, right?
Yeah, that's a great analysis, man. Is that I have 600 words to convey an idea in a rap song, and I've got 50 words, but I can present it in a way more emotional texture singing. I would have sang earlier if I knew I could, though. I just didn't know I could sing. It wasn't like, you know, nobody ever told me, hey, man, you sound great. You know, if just any kind of encouragement up the hill might have changed that going on. But nobody really gave me that kind of, so I just didn't know until, you know, later. I realized I was like doing melodies for choruses, but I was never comfortable enough to really open up and sing them. And then I kind of got comfortable in my voice and I found my voice and I knew what the material of the music was supposed to be. It's always been just write real songs, you know? But once I found my voice, I think that was the turning point. That's obviously whenever every record label on earth called me. I dropped a song called Save Me and, you know, just started, it was crazy. It went from like me thinking people didn't even know I was doing music to like everybody in the music business knowing I was doing music. It was wild.
And Son of a Sinner is climbing the American country charts as we speak. It's this gritty, you know, tale of life after rock bottom. You wrote the song with Ernest and David Ray Stevens. I think you wrote it at Nashville's Sound Emporium. Tell me a bit about the writing of it, the recording. Did you know you were onto something special?
Yeah, I knew I was onto something special. So I still block like weeks off at a time in studios and I go write and record the album at the same time, like an old rock band. Mm-hmm. And we pretty much just immerse ourselves in 15-hour days. We just sit in there and drink until the magic shows up. You know, we're here now. You just got to wait for the magic of songwriting to show up, right? And we were later in the album at that point. I felt like I had a really solid album, so there was no pressure in the room. We didn't know Ernest was coming. We were kind of over it. Mm-hmm. And then Ernest was next door picking up. I always tell the story different because I don't remember what he was. I should ask him one day, but it was like ribs or something for his wife that wasn't ready at the barbecue pit Martin's next to Sound Emporium. Mm-hmm. He's like, you still at Sound Emporium? He's like, I'm gonna come over, let's smoke one. And we did, and we had a couple shots and Ernest broke out his guitar. And you know, I got the video footage from it. I'm gonna drop the video soon of that whole night because I documented the whole session.
Cool. What I love about the song, what I noticed the first time I heard it and what I always cling to is the bass running through it. It really captures the mood and draws us into your world. I looked into it because I loved it that much. It was Craig Young who played bass on it. And I believe straight after he recorded his party, had to check himself into hospital with what turned out to be COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. That's what I heard. Ernest told me that story because him and Ilya had took the record. Because after I finished the song, I called Ernest and I was like, yo, this is a country song.
Yeah.
He was like, I know. I was like, it's dope. I was like, but I don't know a country producer. I was like, will you produce it? And Ernest was like, what? I was like, yeah, man, just produce this thing. He was like, I'm going to bring in Ilya. And then they took care because, you know, all I had was the demo version that I put on the record as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard whispers that you've got a full-blown country album in the works.
Man, you know, the works at this point is being gracious. I'd say it's finished.
Wow.
I'd say I'm rounding third. I'd say my foot just hit third base, and I'm going to bring it home soon. I'm expecting late this year, early next year, full album release.
Okay. And you've been playing some shows in the States with Brantley Gilbert. And
oh, yeah, I got him this weekend.
Yeah, and you've got a collaboration out with him, Son of the Dirty South. I know you two wrote that one with Andrew Bayliss. Tell me a bit about how that one came together and how Brantley came into your life.
Well, Brantley called me one night. We'd flirted with each other on Instagram, just talking, you know, joking, flirting, but you know, we just hit each other up. And he called me one night and we just chat. I just knew I was going to be a lot like him. Everybody in town kept saying, you got to meet Brantley. Y'all are too much alike each other not to have met.
Yeah.
And they were telling him the same thing in reverse. And we just hit it off. And he was like, look, man, I just want to do something rowdy. I was like, dude, easy money. And he had Son of the Dirty South tattooed on. So he came in and was like, let's just do something rowdy. And I was like, awesome. And then I realized I was going to be rapping again. I was like, even cooler. I was like, this is awesome, you know?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
And it was November of last year you made your Opry debut. And you've spoken about how just even getting the invitation alone, it was a massive moment of realization of the struggles you've overcome and where you are now in your life.
Oh, yeah, man. It's just when you look at the moment of like, there's things that define where you've made it to. And to me, the Grand Ole Opry is about as high on that list as anything else can be.
Yeah.
You know, you just keep having these moments where you're like, man, I cannot believe that this is actually where I am in my life. Like that I'm literally playing the Grand Ole Opry. I was invited to come sing songs at the Grand Ole Opry. And that's an insane concept, you know, and to have went back and done it twice now and got to do it with Craig Morgan and just have such a special night, you know, I think we're going to do it again this year. I want to do it as much as they'll let me. Now it's like, my whole thing now is that my campaign is dream bigger.
Yeah.
Because it was in my wildest dream I could play the Grand Ole Opry. And then you play it. So now you're like, I got to dream bigger. Now it's like, I want to play it as much as possible. You know what I mean? Now it's we're headlining the Bridgestone Arena here in Nashville, Tennessee later this year.
Yeah.
That is one of those moments for me where you're like, I grew up coming to this arena. Like I went to the Barnum and Bailey Circus here with my father. I was here when the Predators had opening night. Like I remember so much stuff that I can't even count. Every time taking my daughter to Disney on Ice, Shrek on Ice, the Shrek play, all this different stuff into this same arena, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sat in it a few years ago and watched, I think it was the CMT Music Awards, and I couldn't believe how big it was.
Yeah, it's a big place, man.
Tell me about performing on the Opry stage with Craig Morgan, singing Almost Home, a song that, you know, means so much to you in your own personal story. And then for him to present you with that signed, framed copy of the lyrics. I mean, what a night.
I cried, he cried, we cried. Our president of our label cried, everybody cried. It was just a big cry. And I never thought that I would have a night at the Opry that would be more special than my debut.
Yeah. Well, the night you become a member is going to be even special, you know?
Yeah, right. That's the next goal, right? But to come back the second time and sing the song that brought me to the Grand Ole Opry with the guy who sings it was just unreal. You know, and knowing that I found that song. You know, I have a list of songs in my career that I found incarcerated. And those songs will always stick out to me because to some degree, they're a timestamp of where you were in your life at that moment. Mm-hmm. You know, you'll never forget the song. I'll never forget hearing Darius Rucker's Don't Think I Don't Think About It for the first time in jail. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that that'll always sit with you, you know? So you remember those eras better than anything. And that's what made it so special with Craig too.
You mentioned there, finally, you mentioned that big gig coming up at the Bridgestone Arena. What people maybe aren't aware of and what's equally as special as just you playing there in the first place, the profits from the show, you're matching out of your own pockets, and this money is going to go towards establishing a youth development music program in Davidson County. Why is that so important for you to do?
Well, I believe that the youth is our future. And I was incarcerated as a young man. I made some series of bad decisions from the age of 14 to 17 that just constantly kept me in the juvenile justice system. And I just remember thinking, man, I was so impressionable in that moment of my life, you know? Mm-hmm. And my impressions was coming from other juvenile criminals and guards. There was no program. Nobody came and gave hope. Nobody brought light. Nobody did anything that made me feel like there was a future outside of these walls. And I feel like kids are so impressionable that I want to create avenues to give them positive impressions outside of where they are. So you got a kid in juvenile. You know, I've seen kids go to juvenile that were just foster care kids, just had a drug addict mom and father. and would end up in these juvenile houses.
Mhm.
And then they start rebelling. So they start going to juvenile detention facilities just because they were rebelling. And then you have a kid who might not have ever been a criminal that's a full-minded criminal now because of the circumstances that, you know what I mean? It was, I just really want to lean in on that and try to help those kids.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in, well, particularly rap stands out who kind of like, they act the role that you've actually lived.
Right.
You know, and listen, the song "Son of a Sinner," the album "Ballads of the Broken," it's out. It's incredible. I think, as I say, you know, your story's just inspirational. I think everybody, or as many people as possible, need to hear it. And thanks, man, for giving me some time, and continued success.
Thank you, my friend. We'll do it any and every time. And hopefully whenever I make it over there, I'll get to see you.
Are there any plans for that?
Hopefully next year, 2024. I had to deal with some legal stuff, as you could guess, but
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
clearing my record up as much as I can to be able to leave.